You are listening to the Mary Jane Society podcast, where you will meet entrepreneurs, cultivators, scientists, doctors, and inventors in the cannabis industry.
I'm your host, Pam Schmiel, marketer and publicist in the cannabis industry. Today we welcome Jake Litke, CEO of MediaJel, a digital advertising platform specializing in the cannabis industry. Jake has had 20 years of experience building ad tech platforms around geo and mobile data. In 2018, he launched MediaJel to specifically serve the cannabis industry in media buying, attribution, and retargeting capabilities. We talk about programmatic advertising strategies, especially for CTV, and why it may be the next big advertising opportunity for the cannabis industry. Let's meet Jake Litke. Yeah, so love to learn about MediaJel and you.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Jake Litke. I'm the CEO of MediaJel. My background is in building technology platforms around advertising and mobile data and geodata. This is what I've been doing for the last couple decades. Started MediaJel in 2018. I intersected with some of the really early cannabis investors in the space. This is, people that were in, the early Canadian market. They were looking to provide solutions to the industry, and we identified a gap in the cannabis industry specifically, which was that cannabis brands and retailers lacked access to modern digital advertising tools and access to mainstream advertising inventory. And so we solved that in a couple different ways. One is we built our own technology platform. So we have our own software platform. The largest part of our company is engineers. We've been doing this now for over 6 years. We've built a lot of stuff along the way. So we have our own tag, just like you would expect an advertising company to have, like Facebook or Google, that can do things like attribution and retargeting. We've got a whole bunch of different ways that we target people. We can get into that later. We built that platform originally for ourselves. And then a few years ago, we started licensing that platform out to other agencies and companies that want to do media buying in the cannabis space and the larger regulated industries. So we do work, we call ourselves a marketing platform for regulated industries. Cannabis is the bulk of our business. But we do at this point work with some other things like alcohol and casinos and gaming and that kind of stuff, all the stuff that's really difficult to do, some medical things as well. So we built the technology platform, and then the other part was getting the inventory. And this took us a couple of years really to nail down well. We had to go to Europe to find an independent supply partner that was not a US publicly traded company. We spent a long time convincing them that we understood the compliance and the rules for cannabis. And we eventually convinced them that that was true. And then we went through another process of going through and polling all of the publishers. So when I say publishers, I mean websites, applications, and this, connected TV channels, and explicitly ask them, will you take cannabis ads? Will you take CBD ads? And then we had to bucket people into two different categories. And we got, some yeses, some maybes, some nos. We worked on the maybes, and since then, we continued to add more publishers. At this point in time, we can run digital ads on pretty much every website or app that exists out there within the US. There's still some holdouts, like we're not serving ads on Disney.com, but we are serving pretty much every other major site that you'd want to go to. And when I say site, I'm talking about the open web. So we consider Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, those are walled gardens that are controlled by those systems, and everything's endemic to those. And we're not really going to talk about that too much, other than that largely you still can't do that. But on the open web, any independent or even large media company that's serving ads or serving customers will take ads at this point from us. They won't all take them. Like, you can't just go run an ad on USA Today if you're a cannabis company, but because we have a relationship with Gannett and they understand who we are, and that we understand all the state laws, and we act as a brand safety layer for our publishers as well. So we look at every creative, we understand our advertisers, where they're trying to serve ads. We make sure that they're right in the right geographic area, that they're not breaking any laws for the state or even down to the city. We've got specific cities now that have, their own types of laws. And then it gets complicated between regulated cannabis and, hemp-derived products as well.
So if I'm on the internet looking at some information that CNN is posting, I might see one of your ads go across the top. Is that
Correct? Yeah, we serve ads on CNN today. Publications writing articles about cannabis is a very different thing than advertising, right? So when you're publishing things, informational content under the First Amendment, you really can't, there's no stopping anything. When you're engaged in commerce, that's where things start to get a little tricky. And it depends on the sensitivity of that organization in terms of are they okay with complying with the state laws, even if there's federal laws. Now, with CTV, what's important to understand is you still can't really run ads on linear television, something that's on a broadcast network. And that's because it's regulated by the FCC. Anything with an F in front of it is generally not our friend in the cannabis industry. But if you're on a smart TV or you've got a Google stick or Roku plugged into your TV, that's not going over broadcast. It's not going over the airwaves, even though it may be on CNN. It's not running on cable news. So the FCC doesn't have any jurisdiction over that. It's really not any different than having an app on your phone. It's just a bigger screen.
like if I'm viewing a newscast like on the internet that I saw and clicked on, like, oh, I want to see that, but that's where you're running the ads on their actual TV.
Yeah, their device, right? So if you
device.
are, when you click on the CNN app on your Apple TV, that is different than if you have your TV hooked up to a Comcast cable box that's getting a stream via cable, right? Because that's going over FCC broadcast license. So although it looks the same to you and there's not really much of a user difference for you as the consumer, the mechanism is happening over the internet and it's not happening over federally regulated airwaves, for lack of a better term.
So you can like intercept their streaming version and drop some ads in there, but you can't touch their linear version.
Correct. And those ads are usually, they're different sets of inventory. So if you are a large brand like Ford and you're doing a direct ad buy with CNN and you want, X number of minutes during prime time, that's going to be a buy that happens on CNN as a network. But when you're watching the CNN app on your phone or your smart TV, that inventory is controlled differently. Now, it may be included with that ad buy, right? Ford may say, I want all the linear, and I also want your CTV inventory for this period of time in these time slots. But CTV as a system works very differently. When you run linear ads on linear TV, you really can just run it to the market, right? You're like, everyone that's watching this channel at this time is going to see this ad. With CTV, it works on the programmatic ad exchange the same way that an ad would show up on CNN.com, where, you go there and you see ads that are tailored to you. You went and shopped for, a car yesterday and you're going to see car ads, right? That's retargeting. And that's what CTV allows you to do, because we can target the ads to the individual household based on whatever data segments we may have access to. It may be something simple like retargeting. It could be that we've built a demographic audience for, let's say it's a national audience. I want everyone that's of a specific age and gender and votes a certain way, whatever those are. And there's thousands of different data segments you can use. But you then, as the ad buyer or on behalf of our advertisers, we program our bidder to say, okay, I only want to buy ads on these channels that are for these specific households. So that means that if I happen to be watching CNN, CTV at my house and my neighbor is doing the same thing, we're going to get different ads based on what the advertiser knows about our households.
I guess that's well, in my recent research on CTV and all the benefits of advertising on CTV, I came across the information that this because of the way that you can geo-target and not have to spray and pray across the country, that it's more cost effective for brands to advertise on CTV, because the expense to, is less that they have to put out for their advertising.
Correct. Yeah. With programmatic advertising, the game is trying to buy the fewest impressions possible to achieve your goal, right? The individual impressions are really inexpensive, right? So if you're measuring the cost of a single impression that led to a sale, you're measuring that generally in pennies. But the issue is that you need to serve 1,000 ads, generally, like with normal programmatic, right? You would serve 1,000 ads and expect maybe 2 people to click on the ad, right? So then the question is which 1,000 placements are you going to bid on so that you can increase the number of people that are actually interested in your product? And then one point of, just because you mentioned this, when you run, even when you're running national broadcasting ads, you're generally buying them in a geographic area, right? So like, Super Bowl is the best example because everyone's watching at the same time. Those are generally run national because the budget is so high. Those advertisers want to reach a national audience. But if you're watching regular Sunday football, you'll see ads for like the local furniture store, right? Because you do have the ability, even with linear TV, to target at the market level, like meaning like the city or the county. So that does exist, and that's been around for a long time. But what CTV and programmatic allows you to do is, let's say there's 800,000 people in San Francisco that live there. Okay, I don't want to serve all of them ads. I only want to serve 100,000 of those people because I need a specific type of person. So it's CTV, instead of saying I want to serve to everyone in San Francisco and just I'll reach the people by default because I'm getting everyone. You can say I can reduce my budget by 80% and I can reach just the people in San Francisco that I think are in my target market.
So you can go down to age and I guess
it's might be considered creepy, the amount of information that exists out there with data companies. So we use an identity graph that has pretty much all Americans in it. And it has 1,500 dimensions, and that is age, gender, income. Do you have dogs? Do you have kids? Did you vote in the last primary? Do you have, own a house? There's all these different things that you can pick and choose from. And that's just at the demographic level. We have other tools that we can use because we have a device graph as well that allows us to connect individuals. And this is anonymized data, I should say, right? Like, so when we're running ads, we don't know who anyone is when we make an audience. We just know that they're in a group of people that have these characteristics. But you can do things like device retargeting, meaning anonymized location data of where this particular phone was. Like, for example, we can draw a polygon around a dog park, right? And then see devices that were seen in that dog park. Again, these are anonymized IDs. And then you don't need to know who those people are at all. You just know that they own a device that was in a dog park. So now I want to serve you dog treats or ads for dog treats. Then I want to, target those devices when they're seen, including what they have in their household, right? Like the TV that they have.
That's amazing. So your platform, you're actually the programmatic you're the inventory platform. I guess you have inventory and you can actually serve ads and choose where to do it. I'm trying to draw the distinction because, there's a lot of companies that are like marketing companies that can do programmatic ads and, things like that, but they're working with another company like yourself, I assume, because like you said, you mostly have engineers on your team. So you're the one actually building this specifically for the cannabis industry, setting up all the guardrails and things that we need.
Yeah, so we are a platform, right? And so there's a lot of different pieces to that. There's our own technology, and then we have a lot of partnerships. You really can't work in this industry, in the advertising technology industry, without a lot of partnerships because it's very complicated. It's a big ecosystem, and you need to pick the best ones, but you need people for certain things. For example, like we didn't build an ad server and we didn't build a DSP because those are solutions that already existed. You could kind of think of us more like a HubSpot. If you're familiar with how HubSpot works, it connects to different systems, right? So in addition to running programmatic ads, we can run Google ads. We have hooks into running paid social. So all of that information comes into our system. we are able to set up a campaign that runs cross-channel across something like banner ads, native ads, connected TV, digital out of home, paid social, paid search. Those are all digital channels that are functional in our system. Now, obviously, we didn't build the social networks or Google, but we can interact with them and we can use those as channels. And then another important thing to mention is we have our platform side of the business, which is our software platform. And then we do have an agency part of our business. So we do work directly with brands and retailers in the cannabis industry, everything from a small single operator to, MSOs that are operating, 100 stores across multiple states. So we can't work directly, but we also have dozens of smaller agencies out there in the US today that are using our platform to service their customers.
How much do you work with them, like as far as creative goes? Are you, as much as they need you or as little as they need you? Is that how does that work on the other side of the
Yeah, it varies. We're not really in the business of being a creative agency, right? That's not what we're trying to do. We do have design resources and creative resources internally that we can bring to bear when someone needs that assistance. Generally, the best person to be talking about someone's brand is the brand. For larger organizations, they usually have their own creative teams. We give them the specifications, make the ads in these size or this length. Here's what you can do, here's what you can't do. We'll look at what they send us. We'll give them feedback sometimes, like, you're missing a CTA or this isn't allowed. In some cases, we're working with smaller operators and they don't have the internal resources to make the creatives. We'll help them do that if needed.
Okay. And then I don't know if I'm late to the game or just noticing this, but is CTV a new topic that's coming up for cannabis brands? Is that something you've been seeing on the horizon? Or, I mean, one of the problems in this industry is that there's been no marketing money, very little marketing money.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, last year was a disaster for the industry. So budget has been a real problem. Maybe that's what's been holding people up, but and also like even outside the industry, I feel like I'm just seeing things about CTV and their, ability to be a better advertising platform because of all the things you were just previously talking about. So am I late to the game in all this, or is it?
You're not late to the game. I think that there's a combination of things that have been happening at the same time. You mentioned one, which is just budget, right? The cannabis industry as a whole has a abnormally small amount of money spent in marketing, right? In a normal mature industry, you would see somewhere 10 to 15% of the whole revenue for companies allocated towards marketing. In the cannabis industry, it's like 2% or something. And there's multiple reasons. One is it's incredibly difficult to do business at all, taxes, everything else. The other is you've got the 280E problem. You can't write off marketing dollars. So unless you're doing some clever things around disentangling your brand from your operations and moving budget over there, your marketing dollars are very expensive. So that's about the cannabis industry as a whole. In terms of CTV, it's been around for a while. It's been called different things, and it's a little murky sometimes whether something is considered CTV or online video. You'll also hear the phrase OTT, which has kind of gone away, but OTT is an acronym for over the top. And over the top means you're going over the cable box, right? This is where you're getting out of the broadcast network situation. CTV specifically is short for connected TV. That means a TV that's got some way of getting video that isn't coming from the cable company. There's still a lot of people in cannabis that don't think that you can do advertising on mainstream media at all. We still have these conversations. And that is because most people are aware of Facebook and Google, right? If you're a new business owner, that's where you go first. It's the bottom of the funnel. It's very easy to understand what's going on. You pay per click, people buy stuff. When you get into programmatic display and CTV, these are upper funnel marketing exercises, right? So it doesn't translate exactly to sales directly, right? Television is traditionally an awareness medium. So you're just trying to get people to know about your brand. And then you need to pull them through the funnel to conversion. That is a little complicated, right, from a marketing strategy perspective. So if you don't have the marketing resources internally to understand how you should be spending that money, it is very easy to waste your money. Actually, programmatic advertising in general is a fantastic way to waste all of your money if you don't know exactly what you're doing. The system is designed to take money as fast as you will give it to it and not give you anything back if you're not careful with the system, right? So
Why
people
they
have,
need someone like MediaJel to guide you through this. No, really, I mean,
yeah.
it's true, it's an expertise. I've done it before, and you have to rely on companies to guide you through that black hole that sucks all your money.
Yeah, it's a complicated system, and it's designed to take money, right? So it would be the same as like trying to build your own house. If you didn't know anything about building houses, you need people to help you, A, make sure you're doing things compliantly, but do it in ways that are effective for you. The other hurdles, I think, are if we can get past knowing that you can even run ads, right? Which is one problem, and you get to the point where you want to run ads. And we have been encouraging many of our advertisers, and unfortunately, not as many have embraced this as I would have liked, to create CTV ads. There's some intimidation there as well because people think, oh, TV, I need to create like a Super Bowl ad, and that's expensive and complicated. And you really don't need to do that for CTV. If you're watching Amazon Prime at home, you see the ads that come up, right? Insurance, well, unless you paid to get rid of them, but
Yeah.
insurance ads and whatever they are. But some of them are not any more sophisticated than like a slideshow. Maybe some of them even don't even have video. They're really just like some images and a QR code and a call to action. So that's another thing I think that has been holding people back. Uh, And then connected TV, again, like anything in programmatic, is something that you need to find someone to help you do it correctly. And that leads to another problem within the industry overall, which is that it's not particularly difficult for anyone, if they know the right where to look, to go and get themselves a seat where they can buy media and then go tell people that they're going to help them run media. A lot of the people that we talk to have worked with operators that just weren't very good at what they were doing, or were the other side of it, not clear about what was going to happen, right? When they run ads and the time it takes to create engagement with consumers. I mean, there's a general rule of marketing that if someone hasn't seen your brand, they need to see it 10, 15, 20, whoever. You can ask, people give you different numbers, but it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
zero.
yeah. More than once.
More than once, and really more than 10 times before you click into that sort of brand recognition era. And all that sort of work that you do there is generally not going to drive sales for you, right? You have to go from awareness to engagement to conversion. Those are kind of the three big buckets. There's some little ones in between, but if we think about it that way, what people understand about Google and Facebook, let's talk about Google specifically, Google search, right? When you buy an ad on Google, you're serving an ad to someone that's already looking for what you're selling, right? So they're at the very bottom of the purchase consideration portion of the funnel at that point, which is why it's very easy for people to understand, I'm going to buy clicks for people that are looking for what I'm selling. They go to my page, hopefully they like it, they buy it, okay? So that's pretty simple to understand, but it is a finite number of people there. The thing about the bottom of the funnel is you can only serve ads to people that are already looking for what you have to offer. When you go up the funnel into awareness, this is where you're capturing new mind share, people that aren't necessarily looking for what you're selling by your name. But that means you need to engage with them over time and a certain amount of frequency. And so if you are in a situation where you have $5,000 or $10,000 or something to spend, and you don't have the luxury of looking at it as an investment towards gaining brand equity, then most people probably should focus on the lower funnel stuff, and incrementally expand their view into the world and move up the funnel. I'm
That makes
not
sense.
sure if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense, because if that's all you have in your budget, it's better to go for the dollars. At least
Yeah.
start making that money, build up your war chest, and then try to expand into that area. yeah, so if somebody's thinking about doing a CTV advertising campaign, do they have to consider a certain number of commercials every day or every week? Is it,
Yeah.
like with programmatic advertising, is it like at least invest in 3 months at the very minimum if you're going to just see get any sort of data? Is there anything
Yeah.
about, yeah.
Yeah, so what we would do is we generally look at a market and we look at the available inventory, right? So let's say, I'm just going to make some numbers up. Let's say you're in you have a smaller budget and you're going to target a smaller, like, okay, California, if you're going to do a CTV campaign and you're going to spend $25,000, you wouldn't spend that on the entire state because the number of impressions that are available is, many, many millions every day. Right. And so what you don't want to do is serve 100,000 ads to 100,000 people, because then you've only served each person the ad once. Right. So there's a lot of different schools of thought on frequency, but let's just say that they need to see your ad at least 15 times. Right. So now you say, okay, well, where is a market that I can target that's in my area where, given the total number of impressions, I have a chance to be able to serve the certain number of people this many impressions every day. Let's say I want to serve like 2 impressions every day for the campaign to each person, and I want to do that for 90 days. That's a pretty good number to work with. So then you take your budget and you divide it by how much each impression costs, and that'll tell you how many people you should be targeting. And the nice thing about CTV is, I was talking about a specific geographic area, but let's say, well, no one's selling hemp products online in California. Let's pick a different state. All right. So let's pick Texas. Let's say you're doing a national D2C brand, and you only want to target 100,000 total people. Now, you don't have to target them all in the same place, right? You don't have to target them all in Houston. You could actually target the whole state as long as you're only targeting 100,000 people in total, right? It's probably easier to think about it as a city and say, I want it to be in the city, because there are some halo effects you get by targeting people in a geographic area, in the sense that you can get people to start talking about your brand to each other, right? So there are some reasons to pick, like, we're going to pick this particular part of LA for our cannabis brand, even though we serve all over California, because we need to get a certain saturation amongst a certain population. And then you see how that goes for you. And if it's successful, then you can expand it out, right? And pick more cities.
Yeah. Oh, no, that makes a lot of sense. In my research also in all this, I saw that CTV allows you to do QR codes, and that's like one of the big things to get people to click and kind of bring them down the funnel a little bit more than other, so is that something I think?
Yeah, we do that. We put QR codes in. So there's a couple measurement paths you have for a CTV campaign. One is put a QR code in there, and some number of people will get their phone open fast enough and like get the QR code and go to the link. This is another reason why you want to serve the same person multiple ads, because chances are the first time they're not going to get to the QR code part, and they'll be like, oh, but I am interested in that. And then when it comes up again, they're like, oh, no, I know I want that. Let me get my phone ready. I'll get the QR code, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really good direct way of doing things. The other thing that people do is create a specific URL, right? You see this all the time, like whatever it is, best insurance company ever /TV. Now you can't guarantee that everyone's going to put the /TV at the end. But if you measure all the traffic to that URL, you wouldn't have that available anywhere else on your site or in any other ads. Anyone that went to that specific URL, they saw the ad, because that's the only place you could have found it. That's another measurement method. The other thing that we do is I mentioned we have our own attribution platform. So we have our system set up. We're integrated with all the e-com systems within the cannabis space and the regular world, we'll say. So Jane, Dutchie, Dispense, Timber, all of those systems, plus Shopify, WooCommerce, Magento, BigCommerce, all of those. Our tag sits on the advertiser's site, and every time a purchase is made, that goes into our data warehouse. And every time we serve an ad impression, whether it's a banner ad or connected TV, we also get a signal. And we can use our device graph to identify that this person that made a purchase today, we served CTV ads to their household 2 weeks ago or yesterday or whatever it is. And that's a highly effective way. Now you really can measure ROAS, return on ad spend. You can say, I spent $10,000 and I know that, $30,000 of sales were from people that saw my ads. So that's a great measurement tool that helps people understand, what their return is on their advertising investment.
I mean, it seems like just in general, you can have a lot of insights from what you were talking about earlier, but does this make MediaJel even a better platform to work with because of all these connections that you have into these POS systems?
Yeah, I mean, it's a main pillar of our functionality, which is the ability for an advertiser to see their actual sales and how advertising is influencing those sales. There's some other things that we can do that are interesting also when we have those connections. So just the measurement is like really the big ticket item, right? Being able to see, and we can measure by where it was served, like which ad unit was served, which publisher it was on, or which CTV channel it was on, were the specific ones that are driving towards conversions. And so that's feedback for the advertiser to say, okay, you've got like 5 different ad sets. These 2 are the ones that people are actually buying stuff when they see. So let's focus there. Or in this particular city, this set of publishers are the ones that are driving sales. And that actually varies a lot by geography. So the inventory that drives sales in LA, Detroit, and New York are largely different categories, right? In New York, there's a lot of people on trains, commuting, playing, crossword puzzle games, right? In LA, people are, well, at least they shouldn't be on their phone, but they're mostly driving. And you're not seeing the same behavior. You see more like dating sites and news and weather and stuff like that. So understanding how your brand interacts both geographically and where the readers are is important. And it's important even amongst brands in the same market. So I always use an example, and these are real world examples of running a campaign for a brand like Pop and Barkley in California, which is a very sort of wellness focused brand, versus Heavy Hitters, which is like a high THC, more, culture brand. Those brands work on very different publishers in terms of the audience that are reading the content and who's going to engage. So there's a lot of different variables here. I've kind of run astray of your question, but I will answer.
No, it's all interesting. Please go.
I'll answer the question you had about what we can do with the data that we have when we are interacting with the actual commerce system. So we can understand what people are actually buying in their cart as it relates to the advertising campaign, right? So we can see that this particular creative is driving sales of gummies versus pre-rolls. And usually we're actually running campaigns that are split up like that because those are very different people. Sometimes there's overlap, but with like a dispensary chain, for example, we'll usually be running multiple tactics targeted at different people for different types of products. And then the other feedback loop that you get is we can ingest the CRM data of the advertiser. So if they have an email list or a text list, they can break that up into segments and say, these are my high AOV customers or average order value. These are my lapsed customers. These are people, that come in all the time. We can take those things, we can bring them into the identity graph. We can turn that into a retargeting list for display advertising. So these are people that maybe just walked in to the store, paid cash, but signed up for the loyalty program or gave their phone number. We can then now add those to a retargeting group and serve them digital ads. Or we can do a demographic profile on those with the identity graph and then build a lookalike model, right? So, okay, these are your high AOV customers. You've got 5,000 of them are in this geographic area. We'll go and say, okay, well, there's another 20,000 people that look very similar to those customers from age, gender, income, any other demographics, but are not your current customers. So let's now target them.
Oh, wow, it's so amazing. And how are you using AI? Again, I'm doing a lot of research into all this. So
Sure.
I saw that AI and blockchain technologies are playing a big part in this whole new CTV advertising. Is that anything that you utilize? I would think AI at least, right?
Yeah, so I would separate blockchain out because that's a different topic and isn't really particularly relevant to advertising.
Okay.
But AI, yes, we use AI, many different flavors of AI all over in our business, right? So, and I would say that everyone should be figuring out, it's not the solution for everything, but it absolutely will increase your velocity in a lot of different categories, everything from marketing to ad buying to programming, right? There's a lot of great tools that our engineers use now to accelerate the velocity of our product development, even, UI development. But as it pertains to advertising specifically, the big picture items we use AI for is when we're buying ads programmatically, it's like the stock exchange, right? Every impression, every ad that you see on your phone or desktop is being served as a result of an auction. That means that when you load your web browser, your ad placement gets sent off to the ad exchange. A bunch of people bid on it. Somebody wins, an ad gets served, and that happens in 150 milliseconds less. Okay. So what we're doing as the buyer or the buyer representative is we're setting up our bidder to try to, again, just bid on impressions that we think are the people that we want. Okay. So that is a very large set of data. There's like trillions of ad impressions available. And I mentioned we've got 1,500 demographic dimensions, and we've got location data and CRM data and all these things. So we use a combination of AI to build some of those audiences, right? And I will more technically say that a lot of what people refer to as AI is actually ML, which is machine learning. Machine learning is where you program the machine to like make decisions kind of for you and give you data back. And so it happens at the audience building level. And then we have tags that are, like I mentioned before, we have tags either on the advertiser or on the impression. And we're getting real-time signals back from the customers that are on the advertiser's website. And then we can take that information and feed it back into the bidder with an algorithm that will actually start figuring out which impressions are more likely to convert, right? And so that algorithm sits there doing its work, and then we've got, a half dozen people, human beings, looking at that and turning dials and levers at the same time. So it's a pretty involved system. I would say it's human run, AI assisted.
As far as like an omni-channel strategy, do most of your clients, or do you recommend, if somebody was thinking about doing a CTV ad for the cannabis industry, what other channels should they be targeting for the different funnels? I would assume that you've seen
Yeah.
in a nice omni-channel strategy.
Yeah, so what we think about it with a phrase called the buyer's journey, right? And let's take a 2-week buyer's journey of someone has not heard about your brand in the first day, and 2 weeks later they buy a product from you. Okay, so then what you want to think about is where you can interact with that consumer during that time frame and the messaging that you're giving them and where you're sending them, right? So as I mentioned earlier, if you the huge misconception the new marketers have is that I'm going to serve an ad, someone's going to click on it and they're going to buy something. And even worse than that, sometimes it's I'm going to serve an ad and that ad is just going to go to my Shopify store and someone's going to shop and buy something, right? That's not generally how it works. You do need to go through the sales process with the customer. It's just that you don't get to have a dialogue with them. So you have to give them information, ideally in a sequential format of brand awareness on TV, and it doesn't even have to sell anything. It could just be a joke, right? Just getting people to know your brand. Then retargeting that same set of people with a value proposition. Okay, here's how I can make your life better. Here's a need state that I can meet for you. I was just, I just had a conversation with Andrew Rosenman about CTV, and people don't buy features, they buy needs, right? Like they buy the things that they need. So, so you need to explain how your product is going to improve that person's life. And then you can give them offers, right? You give them a 20% discount or buy one, get one, or whatever it is. But a good omni-channel or integrated marketing plan or a planned out buyer's journey should have those steps in it. You really should have a slightly different message at each stage of the funnel, which again is awareness. Do they even know about you? Engagement. Are they like having a conversation with you of some sort, even if it's just in their mind? And then intention and purchase.
And maybe,
Oh, and I would say, really, it's all fair game in terms of formats, right? Like we don't do, I mean, well, we have digital out of home, so we can do billboards, but you know, a lot of people are like, oh, billboards are dumb. You know what? Billboards work for brand awareness. They do. We have advertisers in California that our advertising works a lot better than it would have if they had not had a bunch of billboards out there with the brand awareness part. So radio, we don't really do radio. Radio's fine too, right? So you kind of need to pick what works for your market. Don't put all of your budget into one thing. You want to spread it out and work in multiple channels because they're good at different things.
well, actually, have you heard, or are people in the industry starting to talk about CTV jumping into this? Is that a conversation? I know that kind of backed us up to
It
is the
is.
first time I've heard about it, but I feel like it's just the opportunity we're ready for. I guess that's what I'm thinking. I feel like we're
Not
mature.
only is it not only is it the opportunity that we're ready for, it is a not crowded space for the cannabis industry right now. There are not very many people running CTV ads. So your competition now is going to be insurance ads and other things that are not cannabis. There really hasn't been that much spend. It's not that no one's doing it. There's been some amount that has happened. We have run campaigns on CTV. We have some running right now. But like I said, the hurdles are somewhat psychological because people are afraid of, you know, TV is like, you know, grad school level stuff that people are kind of afraid of in terms of both creating the content and the budget and how do I measure that. Now the measurement part we have figured out at this point. But the other portions of like, how do I put a meaningful budget toward is I think just a general issue with the industry.
How does MediaJel, like you have an attribution model, you said, is that something other people don't have or that aren't able to track what's happening on their ads on CTV?
I don't think very many people have that. It's really what we've spent most of our technology efforts on. And I mentioned, like, we have 20 full-time software engineers. We have a large engineering team, and we're at this for a long time. So we actually have started licensing our attribution platform to other advertising companies that we don't even run media for because they just want the attribution part.
Right, because how else can you sell ads if you can't tell people how their ROI is, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the way it's been forever, but it doesn't have to be that way anymore.
And is that because I thought CTV, is it because, I mean, because CTV is digital and that's what's giving us the opportunity, but people haven't built attribution platforms around this new CTV? Is that why it's not available? I mean, is it in other industries or is it just not in our industry?
It is more prevalent in other industries. It still is like we have licensed our attribution platform to companies not in the cannabis space that just needed a solution for it. I think CTV is even outside of cannabis, it's still an area of the industry that there's a lot of opportunity for that it hasn't been fully embraced the way that it could be.
Right. Okay. So, but you're adding all probably the compliant components and things like that are relevant to our industry that and all those things. Okay. I didn't realize that it had that there weren't attribution models for this.
Well, also it does require, like, if you're an ad agency and you're running ads, like you couldn't build an attribution platform on your own. It requires not just engineering, but a large data infrastructure. We handle a lot of data, right? We're getting many, many millions of signals into our system every day. It gives us a data set that allows us to be able to link these things together. And also all of the partnerships that we have, the physical infrastructure that we maintain, and the amount of data that we process give us the ability to do that. You wouldn't be able to do that on your own without, no, you wouldn't be able to do it.
Right. Okay. And then I guess kind of winding down, can you kind of throw out there what would be a realistic budget for someone who really wants to consider this? Because I feel like people have ideas of budgets for just regular programmatic advertising. But again, I think, it's a new world because there's a lot of new business owners and marketers in the cannabis industry. There's a lot of new entrepreneurs who,
Yeah.
especially in this industry. So they're really not aware, and like you said, I think they're afraid of it. What's the lowest budget and what should you do? Or, is there a budget that you should really consider to really get a, good ROI, or don't bother if you don't get this, do this.
Well, there is a certain level, even with programmatic, when you start talking about like hundreds of dollars, where I half jokingly, but mostly serious, say that you're better off hiring a person to stand on the corner of a busy street and wave a sign than to put $100 into programmatic advertising, because you're just kind of throwing stuff into the wind. So the answer to that question depends largely on how big of an audience you want to reach. So if you want to serve a bunch of ads in one neighborhood, then your budget doesn't have to be that big. But generally, you're going to think about this in the tens of thousands of dollars increments, or to do, to serve a city, right? And if you want to do a national campaign, it's going to be more than that, with one caveat that I mentioned before, which is if you have a very targeted set of users, even if they are nationally dispersed, then you could get away with a smaller budget, because you only want to target, 100,000 people or something, then you can get away with a smaller budget.
Oh, that's great. Okay. I feel like we covered everything, unless you think there's something I didn't, as far as specific to the CTV and cannabis. I feel like it's a good opportunity just for what you said before. I mean, bingo, it's not being done right now.
Yeah.
So
Being done, you have an ability to, you do get more psychological respect, I guess, for lack of a better term, for your brand when you're on someone's television than when you're inside of a game on your phone, right? You're still getting the same. Well, you're not getting the same visibility, because the other thing about CTV is pretty much the whole ad is going to get seen. There's nothing else on the screen. And so you get 15 or 30 seconds of someone's undivided attention to really talk to them. You don't have to worry about viewability. You don't have to worry about 50 other ads on the screen. So there's a lot of value there. And like I said, the competition in the cannabis space is low.